In my last blending video using Distress Oxides, so many of you mentioned how much you loved seeing the colors come together and you asked for more blends. So today I'm bringing you another beautiful background, a Sunset Dusk Oxide blend is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to be working with the Distress Oxide inks to create a dreamy mix of purples, pinks, and soft oranges that really capture that dusky horizon glow. Some of the supplies I'm using today is the Stamp and Stencil mat from Simon Says Stamp, the Sunflower Dreams background stamp, and with Sympathy wafer die. The colors I'm using is dried marigold, picked raspberry, seedless preserves, and villainous potion. I'll be blending on Hammermill Cardstock that is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. When you are doing any ink blending, whether it's oxides or dye inks, you want a cardstock that is super smooth. I'm starting on one end using dried marigold, and I am using kind of the OG blending tools, except I did change out the flat foam for a dome foam. Now I'm coming in with picked raspberry, and whenever you are doing your color, you want to start out kind of light-handed. It's like that with any type of blending you're doing. You start out a little light-handed and then just gradually add more color. Now, in the Distress Oxides situation, they blend over the top of one another or they layer on top of one another very nicely, which really helps you get a smooth blend. Now, I do like to clean off my work surface in between some of the colors so I can really get that true color to it. I came in with Seedless Preserves, and then at the very top, I'm doing Villainous Potion. And this is looking a little messy, but I purposely went through and just applied the color. I always do this with the oxides. I usually will go back through a second time to help smooth out the transitions. And for each color, I made sure to have a distinctive strip. I want to leave that color there, but I also need to extend it just a bit so that I'm giving myself room for that blend. Now I'm working my way back through those colors. So I did the Villainous Potion at the top, and then I had come back in with the Seedless Preserves. And then I came in with the picked raspberry and finished off with dried marigold once again. So for each of those lines where it's transitioning, I really go back and forth and work between the colors to help smooth out that transition. Now, this would look absolutely amazing if you have like any silhouette flowers or silhouette trees, but I decided to change it up a little bit. I do want to recreate this background and do some silhouette stamping, but keep in mind that when it comes to these backgrounds, you can also just stamp a background over the top. So in this case, I'm going to be using the Sunflower Dreams, which is an outline stamp. It is a large, I think it's about 6 by 6 outline stamp. Great for coloring in any medium, but also looks good just stamped out. So I placed my Stamp and Stencil mat down in my Misti. I put my cardstock in the center, and then I took the protective cover, the plastic piece, placed it over my cardstock, and then placed my stamp over the top. Because sometimes if my inks are still wet, which oxides do take a little bit longer to dry because they are that mix of pigment and dye ink, a lot of times if I pick up the stamp, I will rip my cardstock if my cardstock is still wet. So by placing that clear sheet on there while I'm picking up the stamp with the Door of the Misti, that's going to help prevent any of that tearing. So I'm inking this up with, and then of course, make sure you remove it before you stamp. But I am inking this up with a Versafine Nocturne ink. I did condition the stamp by rubbing my hand over the top just to remove any residue that might be left over from manufacturing. And I have an absolutely crisp and beautiful impression. So I will remove that mat from my Misti. I bend it in half to help pop the cardstock up off of that mat. I decided to turn this into a sympathy card. I thought that scripty sympathy was just absolutely beautiful. And at first you might think it's a little bit too much. Like, Mindy, why would you send this for a sympathy card? But that's because I think this card, because of the beautiful, vibrant colors, would distract them for a moment. And I think sometimes when you need to send a sympathy card, a distraction is needed. So I did hit that with a heat tool because I stamped it twice and Versafine ink can stay wet a little longer. And then I brought that over to my splat box. I started by splattering it with just water and my paintbrush because oxides react really, really well with water. So I'm getting those water splatters. But I'm also going to splatter it with the Antique Linen Distress Spritz. And that's going to tie in really well with my sentiment because the sentiment is die cut out of champagne matte cardstock. It is absolutely stunning. Not gold, not silver, just that perfect mix. I die cut it about 3 or 4 more times from white cardstock and layered it together. I did that off screen because, quite honestly, my head was in the way half the time because it is such a scripty font. I probably spent more time on that sentiment than I did the entire background. I'm just going to add the liquid glue to the back of that stamped die cut word, and then I'm adding them to the front of my card panel. I start with the largest one first to make sure that I'm even on both the left and right hand side, and then I place a heavy block over the top. And while that is sitting and adhering really well to the card front, I will usually just kind of clean up my work area. I'm adding a few sparkles here using the clear quartz sequence from Gina K Designs, and I'm going to call that card good. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed watching this Sunset Dusk Oxide blend come to life. It is such a fun way to play with color and create those dramatic backgrounds. If you loved this blend, be sure to check out my previous video, which I will link here at the end, for even more ink blending inspiration. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a new tutorial. Until next time, happy crafting!